Yeah, I actually like went on a mini rant the other day.
Go for it.
And
Do it again. Mega rant. Not a mini. No minis here.
Mini.
Mini?
It's just like a lot of, like you were kind of telling me before we started, kind of like, you know, everyone sees like math and science as like one end of the spectrum, and then there's like God at like the polar opposite. Yeah. And it's like, how on earth could all of this like perfectly meet up and there like not be a God, you know?
Yeah.
Like the God. Like how on earth can all of your cells just like know how to replicate themselves at the perfect time, at like everything, and like there not be a God? And like I'm saying like a light. I'm really sorry.
It's okay. It's totally okay.
Yes. And so it's just crazy. As I'm taking biochemistry, it's just there's so many little things in your cells, and like, you know, you see the pictures and like the diagrams of the
nucleotides.
Yeah, the nucleotides. And like they're made up of the nucleotides. And like the bases.
The nitrogenous bases.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. The phosphate head? Is that right?
The phosphate backbone.
Thank you, freshman biology.
The sugar
Still
phosphate backbone. And it's just like, okay, cool. That's a bunch of carbons and nitrogens. But then like my professor is explaining like why each atom is in the specific position and like how like DNA versus RNA. Like there's a huge difference in like what they do, and there's only like a couple of things that are switched up about them. Like you know, one's got like an OH on it and one's just got the H, and there's just like different things, and it's like that is insane how like your body knows like the difference between that. And I just think it's crazy. Like there's no like science doesn't disprove God. Like science definitely like proves.
Yeah, I mean, because it's always just like looking at evidence, looking at stuff that we can observe, because I think my political science professor, he's an awesome guy. Like he was kind of going into like, okay, here's empirical stuff, here's fact, here's what we can see, and then here's what we like believe. And so kind of like that, not immediate, but just like soft distinguishment between like, here's fact and belief, here's science, and then here's your thoughts and your feelings, which is like, okay, there's like, okay, reason for that. But then it's also like, man, we can look at stuff, but how do we know that what we see is like what we get in a way? And that's not to be like super meta, but it's like, how do we know that like what we see is all that's there, you know? And that there's something, you know, that there's not something that's also true beyond what we can see. And so I made like a discussion post about that, and I got a couple of rants in the responses, but I was like, I don't care. I think I asked something along the lines of like what constitutes like fact and belief, and of course there's probably like a couple philosophy majors in a section of like 200 or 300, so I just got these like textbook responses, and I was like, that's pretty good.
What were they like saying? Were they like agreeing or?
It was variations of the same thing, where it was just like, you know, they were mainly just given definitions. Like people wanted like regurgitate definitions of like, here's a fact. It's observable, it's knowable, it's testable, it's repeatable. And here's your belief. It's an opinion. It's not shared by everyone. And this, that. And I was kind of like, okay. Yeah. But it's crazy, like you said, that everything kind of fits together. I think about it like we're like the coolest Lego set ever. You know, because like we're all
complex.
Like exactly like we're all like we're carbon based, right? That's right. Okay, and it's like from atoms, from like even just like protons and like neutrons and like the subatomic stuff that I can't name. It's like those are all inherently uniform. Those like, you know, particles. But then it's like there's so much diversity that kind of just literally explodes as soon as they get put together, and there's literally infinite ways that they can get put together and like form, you know, whatever 6 billion strands of DNA there are inside of us that determine like our face, our hair, our eyes, and I'm like,
keep your foot from growing out of your face. It's crazy,
bro. That'd be fun.
You'd be like
I don't
rolling,
know.
anyways,
or like a face on your foot. That's one of those weird like icebreaker questions where it's like, would you rather have a face on your foot or a foot on your face? Nah.
Start next week.
Starting next week. Did I mention that we were tired, everybody? No, it's fine. It's good stuff. But also just like, I was reading about, do you know apoptosis? What that is? Biology, stuff like that. So this is like one of the really It's like one of the only things I remember from biology, apart from apparently like nucleotides and phosphate heads. But like, there's a process called apoptosis during cell replication, or not during cell replication, but like it can happen because, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like the RNA has to like, find the other half of the ladder in the DNA. And there's like a bunch of different checklists that it goes through to make sure that like before it replicates that it's got the right set of DNA to make sure that it's not going to make a mistake when it, splits off and makes another one, right? Okay. Something along those lines. And so like there's all these different proteins and it's like kind of going through the checklist down the ladder and it does it in like a billionth of a second, Yeah. But if one of those proteins is wrong and it gets caught, then it triggers apoptosis, which is pretty much a programmed cell death. In layman's terms, that means if your cell, as it's replicating, finds a problem with itself, it kills itself. And so I thought about that in kind of like a weird meta level where it's like, man, is it any wonder that we're programmed to see imperfections within ourselves? Like, not only like at the reproductive level where it's like you're trying to pass on your genes and stuff, but it's like when you look inside the mirror, like, what do you see? And then anything you see that doesn't live up to your standard of what you think you should be, you immediately try to, like, put it to death or, like, kill it or get rid of it. So that's, like, that's, like, brushing your teeth or combing your hair. Or that becomes, like, anxiety and, like, emotions. And so I was like, that's, like, legit hardwired inside of our DNA to be, like, self-critical. That blew my mind.
Whoa. Yeah, you're blowing my mind right now.
No, yeah. Well, I kind of, like, it might be a weird jump, but it was just, like, something I was thinking about as I remember my, like, it was my senior biology teacher because I took AP Bio senior year. Yeah. She was talking about it, and I was like kind of putting pieces together, and I was like, wait a minute. So I asked her about it. She's like, yeah, it's just like, and it happens literally on a daily basis because you got like billions of cells, right? Or like millions, like billions of cells, right? And so that probably happens like, say, 1 in a million, right? But you've got billions of cells that are replicating hourly or daily or weekly. So there's parts of yourself, we're decaying, like entropy and stuff like that, but it's literally your cells, as they get worse and worse at replicating themselves, start to kill themselves more and more and more. So it's like, it's kind of sad when you think about it, because it's like, oh no, but like it's not like the cell's like actually you and like you're consciously doing it, but it's like just a program, it's the hardware inside of you. We're like just taught to think biologically about ourselves and like almost it's a preservation thing, like a self-preservation thing, but it's also like, bro, if you're not perfect, then you ain't sticking around. And I'm like,
it's survival of the fittest.
Yeah. And it's like, what implications does that have like on the macro level when we step out to like how we think about like the world or communities? You got your groups, it's like the weakest link, like Darwinism, social Darwinism. It gets real trippy, girl.
Whoa, I've never been down that rabbit hole.
Oh, but rabbit holes are fun though.
They are.
I like it.
It's an interesting one to think about.